Let me come over to you, Governor Huntsman, and ask you, we are seeing spikes in casualties in Afghanistan in new places. Can you explain to me what's happening there and how you would change that as Commander-in-Chief?
Well, I think the spikes obviously are driven by lack of security, proper security in certain parts of the country, which could plague us for a very, very long time to come. I take a different approach on Afghanistan. I say it's time to come home. I say this nation has achieved its key objectives in Afghanistan. We've had free elections in 2004. We've uprooted the Taliban. We've dismantled al-Qaeda. We have killed Osama bin Laden. I say this nation's future is not Afghanistan. This nation's future is not Iraq. This nation's future is how prepared we are to meet the 21st century competitive challenges. That's economic and that's education. And that's going to play out over the Asia-Pacific region. And we're either prepared for that reality or we're not. I don't want to be nation building in Afghanistan when this nation so desperately needs to be built.
Make sure I understand. Bring all the troops home today.
Here's what I would keep behind, because we still have work to do. We don't need 100,000 troops nation building, many of whom can't cross the wire. I think we need a component that gathers tactical intelligence. We need enhanced special forces response capability for rapid response, and we need some ongoing commitment to train the local Afghan National Army. That's not 100,000 troops. That's well south of that. We are fighting an asymmetric threat, a counter-terror threat, not only there, but in Waziristan and every other corner of the world, and we need to prepare for that as a reality of our 21st century foreign policy.
And that's time. Thank you, sir.
Stephen writes, I served on an aircraft carrier during the Vietnam War. I believe that torture is always wrong in all cases. What is your stance on torture?
Let's give Governor Huntsman an opportunity to take 30 seconds on that question.
Gets a little lonely over here in Siberia from time to time.
Tell me about it.
First of all, let me thank the sailor on the ship. I have 2 boys in the United States Navy, and all they want to do is go on to fight, protect, and defend the great freedoms that we share in this country. This country has values. We have a name brand in the world. I've lived overseas 4 times. I've been an ambassador for my country 3 times. I've lived overseas and done business. We diminish our standing in the world, and the values that we project, which include liberty, democracy, human rights, and open markets, when we torture. We should not torture. Waterboarding is torture. We dilute ourselves down like a whole lot of other countries, and we lose that ability to project values that a lot of people in corners of this world are still relying on the United States to stand up for.
And Governor Huntsman, Governor Romney just said we're in the middle of a war that we're not even declared or we're not even aware of. And Governor Perry said China will end up on the ash heap of history. You've been in China. You were the ambassador for our nation there under President Obama. What's your reaction?
Well, the reality is a little different, as it usually is when you're on the ground. And I've tried to figure this out for 30 years of my career. First of all, I don't think you can take China to the WTO on currency-related issues. Second, I don't know that this country needs a trade war with China. Who does it hurt? Our small businesses in South Carolina, our exporters, our agriculture producers. We don't need that at a time when China is about to embark on a generational transition. So what should we be doing? We should be reaching out to our allies and constituencies within China. They're called the young people. They're called the Internet generation. There are 500 million Internet users in
Governor,
China.
we're going to have
80 million bloggers, and they are bringing about change, the likes of which is going to take China down.
We're going to have to
while
leave
we
it
have
there,
an opportunity to go up and win back our economic
Governor,
manufacturing muscle. That's all
time.
I want to do as president.
I thank you very much.
Federal spending and debt are not only our greatest economic problems, they're our largest national security problem. Yet the President and the Congress continue to spend and borrow at record levels. Just adjusting the spending on existing federal programs will not solve the problem. What federal functions will you eliminate or return to the states in order to balance our budget?
It's an honor to be with you in your state, as it is many other great leaders from South Carolina. I think it's absolutely appropriate that Admiral Mullen would say that our most significant national security threat is right here at home, and is our debt. I completely buy into that. And if we're going to get this nation moving in the right direction, we need to recognize that debt, as 70% of our GDP and moving up, becomes a national security problem. You look at where Japan is, well over 100% debt to GDP. Greece, 170% to GDP. Italy, 120%. So you get a sense of where our tomorrow is if we don't tackle the debt and spending. My speech is a very short one on debt and spending. It's 3 words: the Ryan Plan. I think the Ryan Plan sets out a template that puts everything on the table. Medicaid, like Governor Romney, I'd send back to the states. Education, I want to move closer to the states. You move education closer to the decision makers, the school boards, the families, you're a whole lot better off. And I think there are some economic development functions as well, legitimately, that you can move closer to the state. But we've got to get our spending closer to 19% of our GDP, as opposed to this unsustainable 24, 25%.
Governor Huntsman, thank you very much.
Or we shipwreck the next generation.
Governor Huntsman, as we sit here, there is a crisis in Europe over debt, particularly in Italy and in Greece, and there is the threat of contagion onto Wall Street and U.S. banks. How do you prevent the euro crisis from becoming a problem in the United States?
Let me just on Pakistan for 1 second, because it's pretty clear. There's one man in charge in Pakistan. I've negotiated with the Pakistanis before, both in government and business. They're a tough bunch. General Ghiani's in charge. He's head of the military, which is head of ISI. It isn't President Zardari. Make no mistake about that. And I'd say you don't have a choice. Then I would pick up the phone and call Special Operations Command in Tampa and say, I've got a job for SEAL Team Number 6. Prepare to move. You don't have a choice. When you have a loose nuke, you have no choice, and we have to take charge. That's called leadership, and that's what I would do as president. With respect to Europe, we have 2 problems. One, Europe is our 2nd largest export market. $240 billion we export to Europe every year, second only to Canada, $250 billion a year. As Europe goes down, as the metastasis spreads, they're going to buy less. And we're going to lose jobs unless we can find other markets as those exports begin to diminish. That's going to be problem number 1, and we need to prepare for that. Number 2, it's going to spread throughout the banking system to the point where it's going to hit us in the United States. And with banks that are too big to fail in this country, we're in deep trouble.
And that is time. Thank you very much. We just